how would international students combat loneliness, say when they're here in the summer and it's going to be a very long time and they won't be able to see their family?
They had to shut down operations, and there were teams that were getting ready to compete for a national championship.
I had a family come in. They looked at me. They go, "Are you Chinese?" I'm like, "No, I'm Korean. I was born here." And they go, "Oh, can you not touch our stuff, please?"
How do you explain you're sad when you don't know why?
I haven't seen my grandmom in over a year.
When you're outside of a country where you have no connections with and something really bad happens, it really freaks you out.
Everyone has lost like a part of them or their passion. And that it's ghosts of COVID, which means
We're leaving this behind.
we're leaving it behind.
Yeah.
So for my 21st birthday, my mom was gonna take me to New York to see Billy Joel. He's one of my favorite artists, and unfortunately that couldn't happen because of COVID. My dad grew up in the 70s, and we would always listen to music together. It was one of our favorite things to talk about. And so after his passing, I inherited some of his band t-shirts. So I have a Boston t-shirt, B.B. King, 2 different Eagle shirts, and so including this is the vintage Harley Davidson jacket that I took. And so it's really cool to have those because, when I look at the shirts, I think of him enjoying the music at those concerts. The way that I look at it is losing him, it sucked, but it gave me a different outlook on life. I picked up a new hobby of longboarding. And so I was practicing that almost every day, and then I would put my AirPods in and listen to the music that my dad and I also listen to. And then so I've danced my entire life, and then so I got kind of creative and started making TikToks, and that was a relief. It brought me a lot of happiness because dancing is something I love to do. And then also following that, I got a dog. So my dad, he always told me he wanted to get another lab. He wanted a black one, and he was going to name it Goose. And so I got a black standard poodle, and I named him Goose. And so a lot of times when I know he needs to go on a walk and I want to ride my longboard, I'll ride my longboard and I'll have the leash and I'll just let him pull me around the neighborhood. And it's a whole lot of fun, but for a while I was indulging in a toxic lifestyle of, partying and things that weren't helping me, and I finally realized I was using his death as an excuse to do those things, and I realized, the only person that's hurting is me and my future. And so I just told myself, especially with COVID and him, I was like, life goes on, the sun is still gonna rise tomorrow, and I just have to push through it and get through it. And definitely, I would love to have my dad back, but I've become a stronger person and it's changed me for the better. So that's the only way I can look at it.
Losing family members, it's never an easy thing, so we take preventive measures to do so. Actually, you said you take as many precautions as possible to protect your own daughter, especially whenever she just came around in the pandemic, correct?
Well, I had my daughter about a year before COVID hit. Mm-hmm. So speaking of mental health and things like that, I had her, and then I kind of felt like I lost myself with postpartum depression. And so I was navigating through this sense of identity loss. And so I was trying to find out who I was. And then, once you're in that place, it's hard to talk to people because how do you explain that you're sad when you don't know why? And so I continued to try to get through that and then see the light at the end of the tunnel kind of thing. And then COVID hit, me navigating through this sense of loss of identity and how to not only get better for myself but to continue to get better for her, and then making sure that she's safe and that we're all safe. So making sure that we continue to take safety precautions
To better protect her. You're doing a good job.
Thanks.
When it comes to getting COVID, I think we all know someone who's at least gotten it, someone that's either been affected by it, someone who, either has complications even after this. Aaron, you said you know someone that was personally hit by it, and they're even having complications even now because of it, correct?
Yeah, we had a great story about a man who he got COVID, recovered, everything was looking fine, and he had past medical conditions that actually forced some blood clots and some really serious issues. Actually put him in the hospital for a while, and it was really interesting to see. We had a lot of stories during COVID. Us at UCO and just all over the world, very wide-spanning, broad stories about people and people groups that were all hit at once, and it was really interesting to take one individual and look at his lifestyle. He's an avid cyclist. He's very exercise oriented and was training for a ride and everything, and then all of that stops because he gets COVID. It indirectly causes even worse medical issues. Luckily, he's back and he's good to go again, and actually just completed the ride he was originally training for. But yeah, it was really interesting to hone in on one individual's lifestyle and how it completely changed everything that he does on a day-to-day basis. It was interesting to see how it affected his daughter. It was interesting to see how it affected the rest of his family. Definitely something that, like you were just saying, we've all had somebody, if we've gotten it ourselves or we know somebody close to us that's probably gotten COVID. And of course that was an extreme situation where COVID led to something else. But yeah, it was crazy to see somebody that I did not know before interviewing him and putting all this together, somebody that really had a serious issue.
I'm just interested in that. After that, because it is something so intimate to talk about, did you feel a lot more connected to him or the people that you were working with to make that video?
Yeah. I didn't know about any of that obviously before doing it, like I said. But yeah, it just kind of showed you how, like I said, it starts with one person, but it can affect so many different people, and that's one of the things that I hope doesn't get lost in the years coming after this. When we do come out of this, we're going to remember big, broad stories about the year 2020 and everything that followed after, and ghosts of COVID, and I hope that we don't lose the individuals and the moments that affected them, affected, like I said, his family, his daughter, who I worked with to make this story. So.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, because at the beginning of this semester, I got a call from my dad. My grandfather's lungs had collapsed, and then my grandmom got COVID at the same time, and we were in it. I haven't seen my grandmom in over a year. Like, she was the woman who raised me as a kid. Like, I didn't have a mom growing up, and it's been really hard. I've been having a lot of, separation, anxiety from her. There's, a lot of myself that, I feel like I've lost, but also I feel like there's a part of me that lives through her right now, especially, and I always just keep her in my mind, what would my grandma want me to do? And I think that has helped build me better as a person, and I think that's something I've really learned, is how to be independent, but how to still respect her and live through her.
I think about it a lot in the sense of how they say that we've had this huge divide among each other, that we're all completely just separated from each other. But a thing that I think about is we are all going through this together, and we all have, I think it connects us. I probably wouldn't talk to the people that I talk to now because of it. I want to know what they're going through, I want to hear what they have to say, and I want to sympathize with them and let them know that I can listen to you. I know what you're saying. I think it's kind of opened us up all to be like that, to hear people more and just be more, I didn't know that about Becca's dad, and it's I have a similar situation of losing my dad, and so it just makes me feel so much closer and have so much respect for you and all that you've been able to do this year. So, I mean, that's a really beautiful thing. I think about it with Ashley and Tyler. Everyone has lost a part of them or their passion, or we're all back on the road to trying to find it and find ourselves again. So.
And about separation and regaining new connections. So I've been separated from my family for 2 years now. I had plans on going back in the summer of last year, but because of all this, I wasn't able to go back, so I ended up staying in the summer, and I just felt miserable. I felt lonely. I felt nobody to talk to. When you're outside of a country where you have no connections with and something really bad happens, it really freaks you out. You go what am I going to do? I got no one to tell these things. So I talked to this student from China, and we felt the same way. We go like, hey, I get you. And it made me realize that, hey, I'm not alone. There's people like me and who've been through what I've been through. And I think that also me being here, I've met so many fantastic people, especially people in this room right now. And like you said, regaining connections. And if I were to go back, there might have been a chance where I couldn't even come here and I wouldn't be able to connect with all these new people. And I felt that another thing that it really helped me be independent. I didn't really rely on other people. I knew that, you know what, I get it, I'm lonely, I got all this stuff, but I need to put myself together and get through it myself. You know, no one's going to help me but myself at the end of the day, and I got to push through. So it really taught me about independence. It taught me about the people around you that will help you. You just got to find it.
In a way, this pandemic has pushed everyone to grow in a way they never expected they could. It has, I don't know, made you kind of adapt to just about any situation possible, because everyone's situation is entirely different. You never know what's coming next. Now, I know a certain profession that has to deal with adaptability, especially they're pretty common, and those professors and teachers, educators.
And just even personal experience, my son goes to preschool, and essentially his experience at preschool and a lot of other kids, it's you're kind of living a half-life where you're trying to do the normal thing, but then you're wearing masks, you're distancing, and you have the teachers are not able to really do their curriculums the way they want to. And I've done some extended classroom, and there have been a couple of times when I'm in class and then I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go, I don't know, clean the office or something while I'm listening. And so I'm not getting a lot of information. And technical limitations,
Yep.
it's you lose, there's a disconnect, you lose it. And I've actually noticed this semester, we're all a mess. It's like we're half alive right now. It's like we're doing the things that we're normally doing, but we're just with limitations. And so it's been an adjustment, and I'm sure it's been affected everyone psychologically. It sure has for me.
There was nothing we could have, I think, planned for to handle this, but we're doing the best that we can with what we have, and I think educators are doing, they agree. Now, when it comes to entertainment is literally one thing that helped people survive throughout the pandemic. Everyone has different forms of entertainment, but one form of entertainment has been impacted way worse, I would say, more than any other one, and that's probably sports. Sports is the most watched thing in the world, such as football, basketball, soccer. They everywhere. Now, can you tell me, Devin, about what happened here? What happened here specifically when it comes to the UCO sports?
From my perspective, we were about to go to spring break and then come back and do spring football. And while we're on spring break, they tell everyone they can't, you can't come back to campus. We'll figure all that out later. So just going from getting ready to, be in my sport, be in my schedule, because all athletes, they crave structure, even subconsciously or knowing. So just waking up at 9:30 in the morning with nothing to do, and just, the days just going by and not really, just kind of falling out of what I came to college to do, get an education and play my sport. And it also affected more than just the athletes. It affected parents of athletes, siblings of athletes, because they get enjoyment from watching them do what they love to do. So just anybody that knew an athlete, or whether it was personally or just from afar, they could have some kind of, they could put themselves in their shoes and have empathy into how they were feeling, because everyone felt the same way. Something was taken from everybody during this time.
And right now we are all pushing to get back to that form of normalcy, even knowing that possibly it may not come back for a long time. If at all. One of the number one things I worry about most is my friends. My friends are they like my structure. I keep them around. I have to have them. But all my friends work, and they're mostly essential workers, and you have to keep them in mind. Every day, they have to deal with so many people coming through and through. They're sometimes it feels like it's endless, but there could always be those people that don't want to listen to the rules that you have in place to keep everyone safe. And I talked to my best friend, Payne. He works in retail, and every day was kind of like a new challenge for him because he had to deal with a whole varying amount of customers, whether it be someone didn't want to listen to the rules, someone got too close, the plexiglass maybe broke in half. He maybe dealt with a little bit of, actual racism just because he is of a different race. He's Korean, and he dealt with people calling him out for the coronavirus. It was endless for him, and if he's even still technically going through it now, I can't imagine what he really has to do that face-to-face contact to people that don't even want to treat him equally as he treats them. He treats them nice, but they don't treat him equally.
What do you think about the aspect of an essential worker that's, especially during the summer and early on when it was really bad, the aspect of them just, you're at home, you're by yourself, you're isolated, and then you go to work and you just repeat that over and over and over again. How does that, you talked about your friend, somebody that you know really well, how does that affect their psyche?
I imagine it affects everyone in a very similar way. You're able to do so many things at once after you get out of work because, you can go express yourself and do what you want. Go hang out with friends, go be outside with people, especially if you're an extrovert. But that day it just changed and everyone was stuck inside doing the same mundane routine, go to work, maybe go to school, then go home. And then the only thing you can do is talk to your friends, but not in person. And these people, you don't get a choice. You were stuck. And this lasted for, quarantine was going on for about 6 to 8 months there. And during the summer, the essential workers got hit the hardest. They had to be there no matter what, every day. And they worked so hard dealing with whatever the customers threw at them, whether it be the toilet paper shortages or maybe just them not acting right. That's what they had to deal with.
I think being an essential worker was hard because I know my fiance was an essential worker and he works at Sam's, and it was a constant out of toilet paper, out of soap, and he had customers coming in constantly asking where stuff was, and he's like, we're out of stock, and then they put limitations on everything, and it was just a crazy to experience. And then he would come home exhausted, and then I'm exhausted because I'm stuck home with a baby, and so we're both going nuts for completely different reasons. He's exhausted and I'm exhausted, and we're all just exhausted. And so it's definitely weird to think about now and how we're continuing to adjust while things are slowly kind of going back to normal. Mm-hmm. And so it's hard to kind of grasp what's had happened and what's happening and what's going to happen, and kind of just continue to move forward if we can. And so it's just kind of hard to think about.
I didn't really understand what was happening with the virus and everything, and we had a spring break trip planned to New Mexico, and we went for one day and we were like, this is really uncomfortable and strange, we don't know what's happening, so we came back. And then we were looking at social media, and everyone was like, okay, go get groceries, you're probably going to be stuck inside for a while. And I was like, okay. So my roommates and I went, and there was nothing, not even canned foods, there was barely any produce. When you go into Sprouts, the bulk bins are no longer bulk bins, everything's in plastic. You can't take your reusable cups in anywhere because it's just, and obviously I understand it, but from a standpoint of caring about it so much, it's really difficult to see all of that. So one of the things is that I actually went to therapy for it. It's called eco-anxiety. So it's just, you feel a lot of discomfort with what's happening. And so a way for me to combat that was just trying to make my life more sustainable. Before, I felt like I could do something about it. I felt like I had kind of my own reign on it, and that I could take matters into my own hands and make decisions that were better for the environment.
I actually interesting enough, there was actually a lot of littering on campus with masks, like the disposable masks. Littering is a huge problem with the pandemic. Whenever the pandemic first began, like the emissions in the atmosphere were great, but then you get all this waste, like the masks, the hand sanitizer, the wipes, and that's just been littered all over our environment. And we have animals here on campus that could easily mistaken it for food. Whenever it first hit, it was like, yeah, we have 1 more week extra of spring break. I remember I was sitting at a study group for my science class, and we were just getting ready for this exam, and we were going in to take this exam, and then got the notification extra spring break, and then came in to volunteer for the newscast that day, and then it's like, we're not coming back. And then it's like, what? And then I had to move back home to Tulsa, and then it's like things just started piling up, and then it just got more serious as it went along. And then I think now looking back at it, like we've all gone through this, and like Des has been saying in our classes, it's like our generation's 9/11, and I definitely do agree with that because we've all been drastically changed by this one way or another, and I feel like it's furthermore developed us as people.
Personally, feel like they should make some type of memorial or something to commemorate however many people have passed due to this.
I guess what we want to say is like it's ghosts of COVID for a reason, which means
People died.
yeah, things are getting better. Like the vaccinations are coming out. We have like this there's a sense of hope, and I can tell our moods have shifted and things are changing, and I just think that we're having a better outlook on life, and that it's ghosts of COVID, which means
We're leaving this behind.
we're leaving it behind.
Yeah.
We're always going to remember it, what happened, and every like learning period and growth that we went through. Well, that was good. We grew, we changed, and it's it. It's going to be over. We just have to ride it out.
I like to think back to 1 year ago, like where we had no idea what was happening, and we had like maybe a couple days before spring break hit. That was the last time we were able to sit at a table together without separations, plastic glass in between us. And look at us now, a year and a month later, we're able to sit at the same table again. If anything, that shows you that progress is happening, and we will get there eventually.
That was amazing, and I learned so much about all of you that I didn't know. It makes me really sad.
You're crying, I'm gonna be crying.
Me too.
Hey, I'm not a crier, but I'm not crying.
You know,
I'm gonna cry.
you're going through all this stuff. Like, I didn't know your grandmother raised you. You know, I knew you couldn't be with her, but that's even worse. You know, I knew about Becca. I think I kind of knew about you. And just hearing all these different things, and of course Shannon, and being so lonely over the summer, I would have Zoomed with you more. And I know all of you have stories. You know, we're telling your dad's story here. And this, to me, was beautiful and positive, you know, but also real.
Hey guys, that's good.
Good job, y'all.
Hey, good job. Good job, Leon.